June 19, 1944. 0800 hours, 200 miles west of Saipan. Admiral Jisaburo Osawa stood on the bridge of the carrier Taiho, flagship of the Japanese mobile fleet, watching the largest naval aviation strike in Imperial Navy history launch into the dawn sky. 373 aircraft climbed toward their targets, representing the carefully hoarded elite of Japanese naval aviation. Veteran pilots who had survived 2 years of brutal Pacific warfare, flying aircraft that incorporated the latest Japanese technology, were about to engage the American Fifth Fleet in what Ozawa believed would be the decisive battle of the Pacific War. What Ozawa couldn't see, what no Japanese commander truly understood, was that climbing to meet his carefully preserved strike force were 450 American fighters equipped with technology and training that had rendered Japanese aviation doctrine obsolete. Within 6 hours, 346 of those 373 Japanese aircraft would be burning wreckage scattered across hundreds of square miles of Pacific Ocean. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, as American pilots would name it, was about to demonstrate that the careful preservation of Japanese aviation strength had only delayed, not prevented, its complete annihilation. The mathematics of aerial warfare were about to be rewritten in the skies above the Philippine Sea. For every American aircraft lost, the Japanese would sacrifice more than 10. The kill ratio that emerged from this single day's combat would prove so devastating that Japanese naval aviation would never recover, ending forever Japan's ability to project air power across the Pacific. The Turkey Shoot had become a massacre, and the hunters were about to discover they had become the hunted. The origins of this catastrophe lay in fundamental Japanese misunderstandings about the nature of modern aerial warfare. Since Pearl Harbor, Japanese strategy had emphasized preserving veteran pilots and advanced aircraft for a decisive engagement that would reverse the tide of war. This conservation strategy, while protecting experienced aviators from the grinding attrition of daily combat, had also isolated them from the technological and tactical evolution occurring in American aviation. The Japanese were about to fight the Pacific War's most crucial air battle with pilots trained for 1942 warfare against enemies equipped with 1944 technology. Admiral Ozawa commanded the most powerful carrier force Japan had ever assembled. 9 aircraft carriers, including the massive Taiho with its armored flight deck, carried 473 aircraft operated by pilots the Japanese considered their elite. These aviators had been carefully preserved through months of training and limited combat, their skills honed through intensive preparation for the decisive battle that Japanese doctrine proclaimed inevitable. What they lacked was recent combat experience against the American air defense systems that had evolved dramatically since 1942. The aircraft launching from Ozawa's carriers represented the finest technology Japanese industry could produce. Zero fighters equipped with improved engines and armament, Judy dive bombers with enhanced bomb sights and armor protection, JIL torpedo bombers carrying advanced aerial torpedoes. These machines, while technically proficient, reflected Japanese engineering philosophy that emphasized individual aircraft performance over systematic integration of air defense networks. American preparations for the Philippine Sea engagement revealed a fundamentally different approach to naval aviation warfare. Task Force 58, commanded by Admiral Mark Mitcher, deployed 15 aircraft carriers carrying 891 aircraft. These numbers alone suggested American material superiority, but the true advantage lay in technological innovations and tactical doctrines that Japanese intelligence had failed to comprehend. American fighters equipped with radar, advanced radio communications, and systematic training in coordinated tactics were about to demonstrate the obsolescence of individual combat skills when facing integrated air defense systems. The technological revolution in American naval aviation centered on radar-controlled fighter direction. Each American carrier operated combat information centers equipped with sophisticated radar systems that could detect incoming raids at distances exceeding 100 miles. Fighter direction officers, trained in systematic interception techniques, could coordinate defensive responses that maximize the effectiveness of available interceptors. Japanese pilots, accustomed to individual combat, where superior skill could overcome material disadvantages, were about to face mathematical precision that eliminated individual heroics as a factor. Lieutenant Commander David McCampbell, leading Fighter Squadron 15 from the USS Essex, understood the tactical revolution that radar direction had created. American pilots no longer flew random patrols hoping to encounter enemy aircraft. Instead, they responded to precise vectoring that positioned them optimally for interception, ensuring that Japanese strikes would face coordinated defense from multiple directions. The individual combat skills that Japanese pilots had perfected were about to prove irrelevant against systematic air defense integration. The first wave of Japanese aircraft, 69 planes led by Lieutenant Commander Akira Tarui, approached the American fleet at 10:36 hours. Radar operators aboard the USS Lexington detected the formation at 150 miles range, providing nearly 45 minutes of warning for defensive preparations. Fighter direction officers vectored 140 American interceptors toward precise interception points, creating a defensive barrier that Japanese planning had never anticipated. The mathematical precision of American radar direction was about to collide with Japanese tactical assumptions based on individual pilot superiority. Combat began at 11:30 hours when Lieutenant Alex Vratiu of VF-16, guided by radar vectors, led his division into the Japanese formation at optimal altitude and position. The engagement that followed demonstrated the tactical revolution that radar direction had created. American pilots, positioned by mathematical calculation rather than chance encounter, achieved surprise despite flying in daylight against alert enemies. Japanese pilots, expecting traditional air combat where superior training provided advantages, found themselves engaged by enemies who knew their exact position, altitude, and heading before visual contact occurred. The destruction was immediate and catastrophic. Vratiu's division shot down 6 Japanese aircraft in the opening engagement, with Vratiu personally claiming 4 Judy dive bombers in rapid succession. Japanese pilots, trained for individual combat maneuvers, found their tactical doctrines useless against coordinated attacks from multiple directions. The carefully preserved elite of Japanese naval aviation was discovering that their training had prepared them for warfare that no longer existed. Radio intercepts recorded the confusion in Japanese formations as coordinated American attacks destroyed their tactical integrity. Flight leaders reported impossible American performance, fighters that seemed to anticipate Japanese maneuvers and appeared in positions that traditional air combat made unlikely. The mathematical precision of radar-directed interception was creating tactical situations that Japanese training had never addressed, eliminating the individual skill advantages that Japanese doctrine emphasized. The technological disparity extended beyond radar to include communication systems that enabled real-time coordination between American aircraft. VHF radio equipment provided clear communication at ranges that allowed tactical coordination impossible with Japanese equipment. American pilots could share tactical information, coordinate attacks, and receive updated intelligence while maintaining formation integrity. Japanese communications, limited by equipment capabilities and tactical doctrine, could not achieve comparable coordination. The second Japanese attack wave, 109 aircraft led by Lieutenant Commander Iyozo Fujita, approached American positions at 11:57 hours. Despite witnessing the destruction of the first wave, Fujita maintained confidence in Japanese pilot superiority and aircraft performance. This confidence proved catastrophic when his formation encountered 75 American fighters directed by radar to optimal interception positions. The engagement that followed would demonstrate that Japanese tactical doctrine had become obsolete when facing integrated air defense systems. Fighter Squadron 25 from USS Cowpens, led by Commander William Dean, executed textbook radar-directed interceptions that destroyed Japanese tactical formations before they could organize effective attacks. American pilots, guided by precise radar vectors, achieved positional advantages that eliminated Japanese opportunities for successful defense. The individual pilot skills that Japanese training emphasized proved irrelevant when American pilots held systematic advantages in position, altitude, and tactical coordination. The mathematics of aerial combat had shifted decisively in favor of systematic integration over individual excellence. Japanese pilots, regardless of their skill level, could not overcome the tactical advantages that radar direction provided to American interceptors. The careful preservation of Japanese aviation talent was proving futile against American technological and tactical innovations that had evolved beyond Japanese comprehension. Aviation radioman Robert Scott, operating radar aboard USS Lexington, documented the systematic destruction of Japanese formations through precise fighter direction. American radar could track individual aircraft within enemy formations, enabling vectoring that placed interceptors in optimal positions for surprise attacks. Japanese formations, lacking comparable situational awareness, were destroyed piecemeal by coordinated attacks that seemed to anticipate their every maneuver. The third Japanese attack wave, 47 aircraft, led by Lieutenant Commander Zenji Abe, encountered the most sophisticated American air defense yet deployed in the Pacific War. Multiple radar systems provided overlapping coverage that eliminated blind spots, while fighter direction officers coordinated responses from over 200 interceptors positioned throughout the defense zone. The systematic integration of American air defense created a mathematical trap that Japanese tactical doctrine could not penetrate. Commander Abe's formation was intercepted by elements of 4 different fighter squadrons, each guided by radar to positions that maximized their tactical effectiveness. The coordinated attack that resulted destroyed Japanese formation integrity within minutes, eliminating their ability to conduct effective strikes against American ships. Japanese pilots, trained for individual combat excellence, found themselves isolated and overwhelmed by systematic tactical coordination they had never encountered. The technological superiority of American aircraft multiplied the effectiveness of radar-directed tactics. F-6F. Hellcat fighters possessed performance characteristics that exceeded Japanese aircraft in most flight regimes, particularly at the high altitudes where radar-directed interceptions occurred. American pilots could dictate engagement terms, choosing when and where to attack, with tactical advantages that Japanese aircraft could not overcome through superior piloting. The training programs that produced American naval aviators reflected systematic approaches to fighter tactics that Japanese education never achieved. American pilots practiced coordinated interceptions, radar-directed attacks, and systematic communication procedures that enabled effective integration with air defense systems. Japanese training, emphasizing individual combat skills and spiritual preparation, produced pilots unprepared for the technological warfare they encountered over the Philippine Sea. Quality control in American aircraft production ensured performance consistency that enabled precise tactical calculations. Standardized engines, weapon systems, and flight characteristics allowed systematic planning that Japanese aircraft variations prevented. American pilots could rely on their aircraft performing to known specifications, enabling tactical coordination that Japanese formations could not achieve with their diverse aircraft capabilities. The industrial foundation supporting American naval aviation included manufacturing capabilities that Japanese planners had consistently underestimated. Replacement aircraft, spare parts, and ammunition supplies enabled sustained operations that Japanese logistics could not match. American carriers could maintain full aircraft complements despite combat losses, while Japanese formations were gradually degraded by attrition they could not replace. The fourth Japanese attack wave, attempting to exploit perceived weaknesses in American air defense, encountered the most devastating demonstration of radar-directed fighter tactics yet seen in Pacific warfare. 82 Japanese aircraft faced coordinated interception by over 150 American fighters, guided by multiple radar systems to positions that created overlapping fields of fire. The systematic destruction that resulted eliminated any remaining Japanese illusions about pilot superiority overcoming American technological advantages. Lieutenant Junior Grade William Hardy of VF-1, flying from USS Yorktown, described the tactical revolution that radar direction had created. "We knew exactly where they were, how many there were, and what altitude they were flying before we could see them." It wasn't air combat, as the Japanese understood it. It was applied mathematics with guns. The destruction of Japanese aviation formations was so complete that Admiral Ozawa initially refused to believe the loss reports. 346 aircraft destroyed in a single day represented the elimination of Japan's carefully preserved naval aviation elite. The Turkey shoot had become a massacre of unprecedented proportions, ending forever Japan's ability to challenge American air superiority in the Pacific. The mathematical precision of radar-directed air defense had rendered Japanese aviation doctrine obsolete, proving that systematic integration could overcome individual excellence when applied with sufficient technological superiority. The few Japanese aircraft that penetrated American air defenses found themselves facing anti-aircraft systems that had evolved far beyond their expectations. Proximity-fused shells created destruction zones that eliminated the evasive maneuvers Japanese pilots had perfected for attacking ships. The VT fuse, one of the most closely guarded secrets of American technology, was about to demonstrate that even successful penetration of fighter defenses no longer guaranteed survival for attacking aircraft. Ensign Saburo Sakai, one of Japan's most celebrated fighter pilots, survived the Philippine Sea engagement but provided devastating testimony about American technological superiority. His combat report acknowledged that Japanese pilot training had become obsolete when facing radar-directed air defense systems. The individual skills that Japanese doctrine emphasized could not overcome the systematic advantages that American technology provided to even mediocre pilots. The psychological impact on surviving Japanese aircrew proved as devastating as the physical losses. Pilots who had considered themselves invincible discovered that their carefully honed skills were irrelevant against enemies who possessed systematic technological advantages. The spiritual foundation of Japanese aviation, based on superior training and individual excellence, crumbled when confronted with mathematical precision that eliminated heroism as a factor in aerial combat. Medical reports from Japanese carriers documented casualties that reflected the systematic nature of American air defense. Pilots suffered wounds from multiple directions, indicating coordinated attacks that overwhelmed traditional evasive maneuvers. Flight surgeons noted psychological trauma among survivors who had witnessed the complete breakdown of Japanese tactical doctrine against American technological integration. The communications intelligence gathered by American forces revealed the extent of Japanese confusion during the Turkey shoot. Radio intercepts documented Japanese pilots reporting impossible American performance, coordination that seemed supernatural, and tactical situations that contradicted everything Japanese training had taught them. The systematic integration of American air defense had created capabilities that Japanese military science could not explain. Training reports from Japanese naval aviation schools revealed the inadequacy of their educational programs when facing modern air defense systems. Japanese pilots learned individual combat techniques that were useless against coordinated radar-directed interceptions. American pilots, trained in systematic tactics and technological integration, possessed capabilities that Japanese education never addressed. The logistics achievements supporting American naval aviation operations during the Philippine Sea battle demonstrated industrial capabilities that Japanese planning had never comprehended. Ammunition expenditure, fuel consumption, and aircraft replacement rates all operated at levels that Japanese logistics could not sustain. The systematic support of American air operations enabled sustained combat effectiveness that Japanese forces could not match. The scientific approach to aircraft development reflected American technological philosophy that emphasized systematic improvement over individual excellence. Performance testing, quality control, and standardized manufacturing created aircraft that performed predictably in tactical situations. Japanese aircraft, built with emphasis on individual craftsmanship and spiritual quality, could not achieve the consistency required for systematic tactical coordination. The electronic warfare capabilities that supported American air defense included radio direction finding equipment that located Japanese communication centers and provided tactical intelligence for coordinated interceptions. Japanese communications, lacking comparable security measures and technological sophistication, provided intelligence that enhanced American tactical advantages beyond what radar alone could achieve. Research and development programs that created American air defense capabilities included university laboratories, industrial research facilities, and military testing organizations that Japanese science could not match. The systematic approach to technological development created continuous innovation that Japanese research efforts, limited by resources and organizational problems, could not achieve at comparable scales. The strategic implications of the Philippine Sea-Turkey shoot extended far beyond the immediate tactical victory. The destruction of Japanese naval aviation eliminated Japan's ability to conduct major offensive operations, forcing transition to defensive strategies that could only delay defeat. The mathematical precision of American air defense had ended Japanese hopes for decisive engagement that could reverse the Pacific War's trajectory. The technological revolution that enabled American air defense superiority extended beyond radar to include proximity-fused anti-aircraft shells that transformed the lethality of naval gunfire. The VT fuse, developed in absolute secrecy by American scientists, created explosive shells that detonated when approaching aircraft rather than requiring direct hits. Japanese pilots who successfully penetrated fighter defenses found themselves facing anti-aircraft fire that was exponentially more deadly than anything they had previously encountered. The mathematical precision of proximity fusing represented applied physics that Japanese technology could not duplicate. Radio frequency sensors in each shell measured distance to approaching aircraft and triggered detonation at optimal range for maximum fragmentation effect. This technology eliminated the precise timing calculations that traditional anti-aircraft fire required, creating destruction zones that made evasive maneuvers ineffective. Japanese pilots, trained to avoid flak through violent maneuvering, discovered that their evasive techniques were useless against weapons that created inescapable spheres of destruction. Lieutenant Commander Mamoru Seki, one of the few Japanese dive bomber pilots to survive the Philippine Sea engagement, provided devastating testimony about American anti-aircraft effectiveness. His combat report described shells that seemed to follow aircraft through evasive maneuvers, exploding at precisely the right distance to ensure destruction. The mathematical certainty of proximity fusing had eliminated the random element that had previously allowed some aircraft to survive anti-aircraft engagement. The industrial achievement of producing millions of proximity-fused shells demonstrated American manufacturing capabilities that Japanese intelligence had consistently underestimated. Each VT fuse required precision electronics that challenged the limits of 1944 technology. Yet American factories produced them in quantities that enabled routine use against individual aircraft. Japanese industry, struggling to produce basic ammunition, could not comprehend the technological and manufacturing sophistication required for such weapons. Admiral Ozawa's tactical doctrine had assumed that Japanese pilot superiority would enable penetration of American air defenses despite material disadvantages. This assumption proved catastrophically wrong when faced with integrated systems that eliminated individual skill as a decisive factor. The mathematical precision of radar direction, combined with proximity-fused anti-aircraft fire, created defense capabilities that no amount of pilot training could overcome. The communication system supporting American air defense included frequency-hopping radios that provided secure tactical coordination impossible for Japanese forces to intercept or jam. Fighter direction officers could coordinate complex interceptions without revealing their tactical intentions to enemy listeners. Japanese communications, limited by equipment capabilities and lacking security measures, provided intelligence that enhanced American tactical advantages. Combat information centers aboard American carriers represented command and control capabilities that Japanese naval doctrine had never contemplated. Teams of specialists tracked hundreds of aircraft simultaneously, calculated interception vectors, and coordinated responses from multiple fighter squadrons. This systematic approach to air defense eliminated the chaos that had characterized previous aerial engagements, creating mathematical order that Japanese individual excellence could not penetrate. The training programs that produced American fighter direction officers included courses in mathematics, physics, and electronic systems that Japanese naval education never provided. These specialists understood radar as applied science rather than mysterious technology, enabling them to exploit system capabilities that Japanese operators could not achieve even when equivalent equipment was available. The systematic education of American naval personnel created technological advantages that Japanese tradition-based training could not match. Weather services supporting American naval operations provided meteorological data with precision that enabled accurate tactical calculations. Wind speed measurements, visibility predictions, and atmospheric pressure readings were incorporated into radar tracking and fighter direction calculations. Japanese forces, lacking comparable meteorological capabilities, could not achieve the precision required for effective air defense coordination or accurate navigation to targets. The psychological preparation of American aircrew for modern air combat included training that Japanese programs never developed. American pilots learned to operate as components of integrated systems rather than individual warriors. This systematic approach to air combat eliminated the psychological stress that Japanese pilots experienced when their individual skills proved inadequate against technological superiority. American morale remained high because their training had prepared them for systematic rather than heroic warfare. Electronic countermeasures employed by American forces included radar jamming equipment that could disrupt Japanese aircraft navigation and communication systems. These capabilities, while primitive by later standards, created additional confusion among Japanese formations already struggling with American air defense coordination. Japanese aircraft, lacking equivalent electronic warfare capabilities, could not interfere with American radar direction or communication networks. The fifth Japanese attack wave, launched in desperation as earlier strikes failed to achieve results, encountered American air defenses that had been refined through 4 previous engagements. Radar operators had identified optimal interception patterns, fighter direction officers had perfected vectoring procedures, and interceptor pilots had gained confidence in systematic tactics. The 38 Japanese aircraft that comprised this final attack were destroyed with mathematical efficiency that eliminated any possibility of successful strikes against American ships. Logistics systems supporting American naval aviation included spare parts, ammunition, and fuel supplies that enabled sustained operations regardless of combat consumption rates. Replacement aircraft were available to fill losses within hours, maintaining full strike capabilities despite the intense air combat. Japanese forces, limited by logistics capabilities that could not sustain prolonged operations, found their combat effectiveness degraded by attrition they could not replace. The scientific approach to damage assessment enabled American forces to evaluate engagement results with precision that guided tactical improvements. Gun camera film, radar tracking data, and pilot debriefings provided detailed analysis of combat effectiveness. Japanese forces, lacking comparable analytical capabilities, could not learn from combat experience at rates necessary to adapt to American technological advantages. Intelligence gathered through communication intercepts revealed the extent of Japanese confusion during the Turkey shoot. Fragmentary radio transmissions documented Japanese pilots reporting impossible American coordination, aircraft that seemed to appear from nowhere, and anti-aircraft fire that followed evasive maneuvers. The systematic integration of American air defense had created capabilities that Japanese military science could not explain or counter. The mobility of American task forces multiplied the effectiveness of their air defense systems by denying Japanese forces predictable targets. High-speed maneuvering, coordinated through sophisticated communication networks, prevented Japanese aircraft from achieving concentrated attacks against American ships. Japanese strike formations, trained for attacks against stationary or slowly moving targets, could not adapt to the tactical mobility that American naval forces achieved through superior engineering and coordination. Research and development programs that created American air defense capabilities included continuous improvement based on combat experience and scientific analysis. University laboratories, industrial research facilities, and military testing organizations worked together to enhance system performance throughout the war. Japanese research efforts, limited by resources and organizational problems, could not achieve comparable rates of technological development. The manufacturing quality of American aircraft and weapon systems ensured performance consistency that enabled precise tactical calculations. Standardized production methods, quality control procedures, and systematic testing created equipment that performed to specifications regardless of manufacturing location or production batch. Japanese manufacturing, hampered by resource limitations and traditional craftsman approaches, could not achieve the consistency required for systematic tactical coordination. Training facilities for American naval aviators included link trainers, sophisticated simulators that provided combat experience without aircraft exposure to danger. These devices enabled pilots to practice radar-directed interceptions, communication procedures, and systematic tactics under controlled conditions. Japanese training, limited to actual flight experience and traditional methods, could not provide comparable preparation for technological warfare. The integration of surface ships with air defense operations created combined capabilities that multiplied the effectiveness of both systems. Anti-aircraft guns, directed by radar, could engage targets identified by fighter direction officers, while fighter interceptions could be coordinated with ship movements to maximize defensive coverage. Japanese forces, lacking comparable integration capabilities, could not achieve systematic coordination between different weapon systems. Counterintelligence operations protected American technological advantages from Japanese infiltration attempts. Security measures ensured that radar frequencies, proximity fuse designs, and tactical procedures remained secret despite Japanese espionage efforts. Code-breaking operations provided intelligence about Japanese aviation capabilities and tactical planning, enabling American defenses to be optimized against specific threats. The electronic warfare environment of the Philippine Sea battle included sophisticated American systems that provided tactical advantages Japanese forces could not counter. Radio direction finding equipment located Japanese aircraft formations before radar contact, enabling earlier fighter direction. Communication security measures prevented Japanese intelligence gathering, while American intercepts provided detailed enemy intelligence. Japanese forces, lacking equivalent electronic warfare capabilities, found themselves at systematic disadvantages in the invisible spectrum of electronic combat. Medical services supporting American naval aviation included flight surgeons trained in aviation medicine and equipped with facilities that could treat complex combat injuries. Rescued air crews received immediate medical attention that maximized survival rates and enabled rapid return to duty. Japanese medical services, limited by equipment and training, could not provide comparable care for their diminishing numbers of experienced aircrew. The strategic implications of the Philippine Sea-Turkey shoot extended beyond immediate tactical victory to influence the entire course of the Pacific War. The destruction of Japanese naval aviation eliminated Japan's ability to conduct major offensive operations, forcing transition to defensive strategies that could only delay inevitable defeat. American control of the air eliminated Japanese ability to interfere with subsequent operations throughout the Pacific. Post-battle analysis by Japanese naval staff acknowledged that their aviation doctrine had become obsolete when facing American technological integration. Individual pilot excellence, the foundation of Japanese air power, proved inadequate against systematic air defense that eliminated heroism as a factor. The careful preservation of Japanese aviation talent had only delayed, not prevented, its complete destruction by American technological superiority. Admiral Ozawa's final report to Imperial Navy headquarters admitted the failure of Japanese aviation strategy. The enemy has achieved integration of technological systems that makes individual pilot skill irrelevant. Our most experienced aviators cannot overcome their mathematical precision. Naval aviation, as we understand it, has ended. The training programs developed for American naval aviation became the foundation for post-war Air Force education worldwide. Systematic approaches to fighter tactics, radar direction, and technological integration established principles that influenced military aviation for decades. Japanese aviation education, reformed after the war, adopted many American methods that had proved superior to traditional approaches. The technological foundation established for American air defense operations influenced post-war military development throughout the world. Radar systems, communication networks, and precision manufacturing techniques developed for naval aviation became standard in modern air defense systems. The revolution that began with fighter direction officers calculating interception vectors had established principles that remain relevant in contemporary air warfare. Industrial capabilities demonstrated during the Philippine Sea engagement established American manufacturing supremacy that influenced global economic development for decades. Factories that produced aircraft, radar systems, and precision ammunition adapted their advanced manufacturing techniques to civilian production, creating industrial capabilities that dominated international markets. Quality assurance programs developed for American naval aviation ensured performance standards that made systematic tactical coordination possible. Standardized testing procedures, statistical quality control, and systematic inspection created equipment that performed to mathematical specifications. These manufacturing techniques, developed for military necessity, revolutionized American industrial production. The scientific approach to naval aviation demonstrated during the Philippine Sea Battle proved that systematic technological integration could overcome traditional military advantages when applied with sufficient resources and organizational capability. Japanese individual pilot excellence, representing centuries of warrior tradition and intensive training, was obliterated by American radar operators armed with mathematics, coordination, and unlimited resources. Intelligence analysis of Japanese aviation capabilities revealed fundamental limitations that prevented adaptation to technological warfare. Training programs that emphasized individual combat skills could not produce personnel capable of systematic coordination. Manufacturing capabilities limited by resources and traditional methods could not achieve the consistency required for technological integration. Japanese aviation had reached an evolutionary dead end when facing American industrial warfare. The communication networks that enabled American air defense coordination included innovations that influenced post-war telecommunications development. Frequency allocation systems, network switching techniques, and signal processing methods developed for naval aviation found civilian applications that transformed global communications. The systematic approach to information management that enabled the turkey shoot became the foundation for modern information technology. Electronic systems developed for American naval aviation included early computers that calculated firing solutions, tracked multiple targets, and coordinated complex operations. These mechanical and electronic computation systems represented primitive artificial intelligence that multiplied human decision-making capabilities. Japanese forces, lacking access to such computational aids, could not achieve comparable operational coordination. The psychological impact of the Philippine Sea defeat on surviving Japanese aircrew extended beyond individual trauma to influence national military psychology. The complete failure of carefully preserved aviation elite against American technological integration undermined confidence in traditional Japanese military values. Individual excellence and spiritual preparation, the foundations of Japanese military culture, had proved inadequate against mathematical precision. Training analysis conducted by American naval aviation schools identified specific factors that enabled turkey shoot success. Systematic education in technological systems, coordinated tactics, and integrated operations created personnel capable of exploiting advanced equipment capabilities. Japanese training, emphasizing individual skills and traditional values, produced aviators unprepared for technological warfare. The logistics triumph of maintaining American naval aviation capabilities throughout extended Pacific operations demonstrated organizational achievements that Japanese planning had never contemplated. Supply systems, maintenance procedures, and personnel replacement programs operated at scales that enabled sustained technological warfare, regardless of distance from home bases or intensity of operations. Research programs that supported American naval aviation development included classified projects that advanced multiple technologies simultaneously. Radar improvements, communication enhancements, and weapons development proceeded in coordinated programs that created systematic advances rather than isolated improvements. Japanese research efforts, limited by resources and security problems, could not achieve comparable technological development rates. Manufacturing innovations developed for American naval aviation production established industrial capabilities that influenced global economic competition for decades. Precision machining techniques, quality control systems, and systematic production methods created manufacturing excellence that extended far beyond military applications. The industrial foundation that enabled the turkey shoot became the basis for American economic dominance. The final accounting of the Philippine Sea engagement revealed losses that eliminated Japanese naval aviation as an effective fighting force. 346 aircraft destroyed in a single day represented not just material losses, but the elimination of irreplaceable human expertise that Japanese training programs could not regenerate. American losses of 29 aircraft demonstrated kill ratios that made continuation of the air war impossible for Japanese forces. Emperor Hirohito's reaction to Philippine Sea losses, documented in court records, acknowledged that Japanese aviation strategy had failed completely. The careful preservation of pilot expertise and advanced aircraft had only delayed their destruction by American technological superiority. Traditional Japanese military values had proved inadequate against systematic industrial warfare. The technological revolution demonstrated in the Philippine Sea battle established American air superiority that lasted throughout the remainder of the Pacific War. Japanese aviation, reduced to kamikaze attacks by pilots with minimal training, could not challenge American air defense systems that had been proven in the turkey shoot. The mathematical precision of radar-directed air defense had ended Japanese hopes for air superiority in any future engagements. Post-war interrogation of surviving Japanese aviation personnel revealed the extent to which technological integration had demoralized enemy forces. Pilots who had considered themselves invincible discovered that their skills were irrelevant against systematic air defense. The Turkey shoot had destroyed not just aircraft and personnel, but the psychological foundation of Japanese aviation confidence. The strategic consequences of the Philippine Sea Massacre extended throughout the Pacific War and influenced Japanese surrender decisions. The elimination of naval aviation capabilities prevented Japanese forces from interfering with American operations in the Philippines, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. Each subsequent American victory was achieved without significant air opposition due to the complete destruction of Japanese aviation in the Turkey shoot. The aftermath of the Philippine Sea Massacre revealed the complete transformation of naval warfare that American technological integration had achieved. Damage assessment teams aboard Japanese carriers documented losses that exceeded the worst-case scenarios their planning had contemplated. The Taiho, Admiral Ozawa's flagship, had been torpedoed by the submarine USS Albacore during the air battle, its armored flight deck providing no protection against American submarine warfare. The Shokaku, veteran of Pearl Harbor and the Coral Sea, was sunk by USS Kavala, eliminating another irreplaceable symbol of Japanese naval aviation. The industrial statistics supporting American naval operations during the Philippine Sea engagement demonstrated manufacturing capabilities that Japanese intelligence had consistently underestimated. American shipyards were producing aircraft carriers at rates that enabled replacement of combat losses within months rather than years. The Essex-class carrier program delivered 24 ships during the war, each carrying air groups larger than entire Japanese carrier divisions. Japanese shipbuilding, hampered by resource limitations and strategic bombing, could not approach these production rates. Pilot training programs that produced American naval aviators included standardized curricula that created consistent tactical capabilities across all squadrons. Flight training schools operated at multiple locations, producing graduates with identical skills and procedures that enabled seamless integration into carrier operations. Japanese pilot training, disrupted by fuel shortages and accelerated by combat losses, could not maintain the quality standards required for effective naval aviation operations. The electronic warfare capabilities demonstrated during the Philippine Sea Battle included radar jamming equipment that could disrupt Japanese aircraft navigation systems while protecting American frequencies from interference. These primitive but effective countermeasures created additional confusion among Japanese formations already struggling with American air defense coordination. Japanese aircraft, lacking equivalent electronic protection systems, found their limited electronic equipment disabled by American jamming operations. Intelligence gathered through cryptographic operations provided American commanders with detailed knowledge of Japanese aviation capabilities, tactical doctrine, and operational planning. Code-breaking efforts revealed Japanese expectations for the Philippine Sea engagement, enabling American defenses to be optimized against specific attack profiles. Japanese communication security, compromised by American cryptographic success, provided intelligence advantages that multiplied the effectiveness of technological superiority. The systematic approach to ammunition storage and handling aboard American carriers ensured that aircraft could be rapidly rearmed and launched for multiple sorties during extended engagements. Automated ammunition handling systems, fire safety procedures, and damage control capabilities enabled continuous operations despite the dangers of combat. Japanese carriers, lacking comparable ammunition handling systems, could not sustain the sortie rates necessary for effective air operations. Maintenance procedures developed for American naval aviation included standardized repair techniques that enabled rapid restoration of combat-damaged aircraft. Trained technicians could perform complex repairs using standardized parts and tools available throughout the fleet. Japanese maintenance capabilities, limited by spare parts shortages and traditional craftsman approaches, could not achieve comparable aircraft availability rates during sustained operations. The meteorological services supporting American naval operations provided weather data with precision that enabled accurate navigation and tactical planning throughout the vast Pacific theater. Weather reconnaissance flights, balloon-launched instruments, and systematic observation networks created forecasting capabilities that Japanese forces could not match. This meteorological advantage enabled American task forces to position themselves optimally for air defense while denying Japanese aircraft favorable attack conditions. Medical services aboard American carriers included flight surgeons trained in aviation medicine and equipped with facilities that could treat complex combat injuries. Psychological support for aircrew experiencing combat stress ensured that effective pilots remained operational despite the pressures of sustained combat. Japanese medical services, limited by traditional approaches to military medicine, could not provide comparable care for their diminishing numbers of experienced aircrew. The logistics network supporting American naval aviation included mobile service squadrons that could establish temporary bases on captured islands within weeks of their seizure. These forward bases extended American operational reach while providing emergency landing fields for damaged aircraft. Japanese logistics, dependent on established bases that American forces systematically captured, could not maintain the forward presence necessary for effective air operations. Research and development programs supporting American naval aviation included continuous improvement of aircraft design, weapon systems, and tactical procedures based on combat experience. University laboratories, industrial research facilities, and military testing organizations worked together to enhance performance throughout the war. Japanese research efforts, limited by resources and organizational problems, could not achieve comparable rates of technological advancement. The industrial achievement of producing proximity-fused ammunition in quantities sufficient for routine use against individual aircraft demonstrated American manufacturing capabilities that Japanese planners had never comprehended. Each VT fuse required precision electronics that challenged 1944 technology, yet American factories produced millions of these sophisticated devices. Japanese industry, struggling to produce basic ammunition, could not approach the technological sophistication required for such weapons. Training simulators developed for American naval aviation included link trainers and specialized equipment that provided realistic combat experience without exposing aircraft or personnel to danger. These devices enabled pilots to practice complex procedures, emergency responses, and coordination techniques under controlled conditions. Japanese training, limited to actual flight experience due to equipment shortages, could not provide comparable preparation for combat operations. Quality control procedures for American naval aviation maintenance ensured that aircraft performed to specifications regardless of service conditions or combat damage. Systematic inspection procedures, standardized repair techniques, and replacement parts availability maintained aircraft readiness rates that Japanese forces could not achieve. This maintenance excellence multiplied the effectiveness of American technological advantages by ensuring that superior equipment remained operational. The communication security measures protecting American naval aviation operations included code systems, frequency management, and signal procedures that prevented Japanese intelligence gathering while enabling complex tactical coordination. Multiple communication networks provided redundancy that ensured coordination continued despite enemy interference or equipment failure. Japanese communications, vulnerable to American cryptographic attacks and lacking security measures, provided intelligence that enhanced American tactical advantages. Integration of surface vessel capabilities with air defense operations created combined arms effectiveness that multiplied the lethality of both systems. Radar-directed anti-aircraft guns could engage targets identified by airborne controllers, while fighter interceptions could be coordinated with ship movements to maximize defensive coverage. Japanese forces, lacking comparable integration capabilities, could not achieve systematic coordination between different weapon systems. The mobility of American carrier task forces multiplied their defensive effectiveness by denying Japanese aircraft predictable target locations. High-speed maneuvering capabilities, enabled by advanced engineering and abundant fuel supplies, prevented Japanese strike aircraft from achieving concentrated attacks against American ships. Japanese aviation, trained for attacks against stationary or predictably moving targets, could not adapt to the tactical mobility that American naval engineering achieved. Counter-battery operations conducted by American forces included systematic destruction of Japanese airfields using carrier-based aircraft and naval gunfire. These attacks, coordinated through intelligence networks and reconnaissance flights, eliminated Japanese ability to support air operations from land bases. Japanese airfield construction, limited by resources and constantly disrupted by American attacks, could not provide the base network necessary for sustained air operations. The scientific approach to damage assessment enabled American forces to evaluate combat effectiveness with precision that guided continuous tactical improvement. Gun camera film, radar tracking data, and systematic debriefing procedures provided detailed analysis of engagement results. Japanese forces, lacking comparable analytical capabilities, could not learn from combat experience at rates necessary to adapt to American technological developments. Electronic countermeasures employed by American naval forces included radar deception techniques that could confuse Japanese aircraft navigation while protecting American electronic emissions from detection. These capabilities, while primitive by later standards, created additional difficulties for Japanese air crews already struggling with American air defense coordination. Japanese aircraft, lacking electronic warfare training or equipment, could not operate effectively in the complex electronic environment that American technology created. The personnel replacement systems supporting American naval aviation included training pipelines that could provide qualified aircrew faster than combat could eliminate them. Multiple training facilities, standardized instruction programs, and systematic personnel management maintained squadron strength despite combat losses. Japanese personnel systems, disrupted by accelerated training schedules and resource limitations, could not replace experienced aircrew at rates necessary for sustained operations. Fuel systems aboard American carriers included safety measures and handling procedures that enabled rapid aircraft servicing while minimizing fire hazards during combat operations. Automated fuel transfer systems, firefighting equipment, and damage control procedures allowed continuous flight operations despite the dangers of aviation fuel storage. Japanese carriers, lacking comparable fuel handling systems, suffered catastrophic losses when aviation fuel fires spread beyond control capabilities. The technological foundation supporting American proximity fusing included manufacturing techniques that produced reliable electronic components, despite the miniaturization challenges of 1944 technology. Quality control procedures ensured that complex electronic systems functioned properly despite the shock and vibration of artillery firing. Japanese electronics industry, limited by materials shortages and traditional manufacturing methods, could not produce comparable sophisticated components. Integration of intelligence gathering with tactical operations enabled American forces to exploit Japanese vulnerabilities with precision that multiplied combat effectiveness. Reconnaissance flights, communication intercepts, and cryptographic analysis provided real-time intelligence that guided tactical decisions. Japanese intelligence capabilities, limited by equipment shortages and organizational problems, could not provide comparable tactical intelligence support. The systematic approach to aircrew survival included rescue procedures, survival equipment, and search operations that maximized the recovery of downed pilots. Submarine rescue operations, flying boat searches, and coordinated recovery missions ensured that experienced aircrew could be returned to operational duty. Japanese aircrew survival programs, limited by resources and geographic constraints, could not achieve comparable pilot recovery rates. Manufacturing innovations developed for American naval aviation production included precision machining techniques, automated assembly procedures, and quality control systems that created aircraft performing to exact specifications. standardized production methods ensured that aircraft from different manufacturers could be maintained using identical procedures and replacement parts. Japanese aircraft manufacturing, limited by traditional craftsman methods and resource constraints, could not achieve comparable production consistency. The communication networks enabling American air defense coordination included multiple frequency allocations, secure encoding systems, and backup communication methods that ensured tactical coordination continued despite equipment failures or enemy interference. These networks connected ships, aircraft, and land-based facilities across thousands of miles of ocean. Japanese communications, limited by equipment capabilities and lacking redundancy, could not achieve comparable coordination across extended operational areas. Research programs supporting American electronic warfare capabilities included university laboratories investigating radio frequency propagation, signal processing techniques, and electronic component miniaturization. These scientific efforts created technological advantages that Japanese research organizations, limited by resources and security restrictions, could not duplicate. The systematic approach to electronic warfare development provided capabilities that influenced the outcome of every major engagement. The strategic implications of American technological superiority extended beyond immediate tactical advantages to influence the entire character of Pacific warfare. Japanese forces, unable to compete with American industrial and technological capabilities, were forced into increasingly desperate tactical expedients. The systematic nature of American advantages meant that Japanese tactical innovations could not overcome fundamental disparities in equipment and training. Psychological warfare operations conducted by American forces included broadcasts highlighting the technological superiority demonstrated in the Philippine Sea engagement. These propaganda efforts, supported by documented evidence of Japanese aviation losses, undermined enemy morale while building confidence among American personnel. Japanese propaganda, unable to explain or counter American technological achievements, lost credibility among both military personnel and civilian populations. The environmental conditions in the Pacific Theater created additional challenges that American technological solutions addressed more effectively than Japanese traditional methods. Tropical weather, extended ocean distances, and primitive base facilities required systematic approaches to maintenance, logistics, and operations. American industrial methods proved more adaptable to these conditions than Japanese traditional approaches. Training programs developed for American electronic systems operators included technical education that Japanese military schools could not provide. Understanding of radar principles, radio frequency management, and electronic maintenance enabled American personnel to exploit equipment capabilities fully. Japanese operators, trained in traditional methods without technical understanding, could not achieve comparable system performance even when equivalent equipment was available. The final strategic assessment of the Philippine Sea engagement revealed that American technological integration had achieved decisive advantages that Japanese forces could not counter through tactical innovation or individual excellence. The systematic nature of American superiority meant that each technological advance multiplied the effectiveness of others, creating cumulative advantages that rendered Japanese resistance increasingly futile. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot proved that technological integration and systematic coordination could overcome traditional military excellence when applied with sufficient industrial resources and scientific precision. Japanese naval aviation, representing decades of careful development and intensive training, was obliterated in a single day by American mathematical warfare that rendered individual skill obsolete. The age of technological warfare had arrived, and its first victims were the samurai of the sky who had once ruled the Pacific.